Welcome to the Iron Brew podcast. Brad Mel, Matt Blanchard, and Matt Ellis. Now, once again, broadcasting live with Iron Chairman Peter Swann ahead of the new season tomorrow. So, Peter, thank you for joining us once again. How are you? And also, we kick off again tomorrow. So, how are you feeling ahead of the new season?
I think there's a lot of anticipation. I feel a lot better than we were probably 18 months ago. So, I think I said in my piece today on the website that it's nice that we can start again. That's the only great thing about this. If you manage to hang on to your league status, you can start again and hopefully do better. And I think we can do that this year.
So when we consider last season, I think obviously the main aim was safety. It did get quite close towards the end. Did you have faith that we would hang on? Obviously said it's a bit of a fresh start now going into next season, but just looking back, did you have faith that we would hang on at the end?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's easy to say that now, isn't it? I mean, I dare say that there were jitters at times, but I did think we did enough to just about hang on, and that's what we did. And it was great that Neil could get us through that, because I think he'll grow from that and he'll learn a little bit more, and hopefully that experience, he doesn't want to go through that again, and neither do I, and I don't think the fans do. So hopefully that will give him the boost he needs to win a few more matches this year.
As we know, last season was very difficult with the pandemic and things like that. But in your opinion, Peter, why do you think it went so wrong last season, and why it didn't quite happen for the team on the pitch?
We didn't really have the pre-season that we needed. I certainly think that if you speak to Neil now, he'll say that we're better prepared, and I think we are. COVID probably a year ago, we were still learning a lot about it. We're learning how to treat it, how to get our players through, and we were just losing players left, right, and centre through pre-season. And then, on the Saturday morning when they tested, you could lose 3 of your key players, and that was our main problem. Yes, listen, everybody had the same problem, but I think you needed a bit of luck to sort of get through that. And I look back on it with our staff and everybody who looked after the stadium during that time. I think they did such a great job that sort of got us through.
Well, just in regards to that then, in terms of the COVID situation, because obviously it's still going to affect this season, it's not disappeared completely. Do you feel that, obviously all clubs will have sort of learnt things from last year, but do you feel in that regard, are we much more equipped and, I guess, safer in a way of not necessarily losing players throughout the season?
I still think we'll lose players. It's just how we do it. Obviously, the pinging of certain people when they're near people. I mean, I think it got to about 1 million people were pinged. I mean, that is a problem. But it's really down to our lads to make sure they look after themselves and they keep within, a sensible bubble. Even as we've had everything, all the restrictions dropped, it's really important that people still look after themselves. And I think we'll be better prepared for it. And there are different cases and things that we can do to avoid losing 3 or 4 players, where we can just lose 1 and they can be retested. So yes, we have learned a lot, and I hope we can get through the majority of this season, intact and with all the fans in.
Just sort of to end on last season, then reflecting on last season, recently you kind of suggested that you were quite disappointed by some comments from Jem Karajan regarding sort of the attitude of some of the players last season. And I think even Neil Cox, listening to him on radio this week, kind of suggested that maybe 1 or 2 players didn't always have the right attitude. Have any steps been taken this season in terms of sort of the players that have been brought in to make sure that doesn't happen again?
I think it's always disappointing when a player goes to the press, because usually what happens in the changing rooms and within the team structure stays there. That's what we've always done. We've always trying to be private. We've there are a lot of things happened in this club in the last 8 years, and maybe one day there might be a book, but it's difficult. We work as a team, and when things go wrong, we like to look after each other and make sure that it's not too detrimental to their lives. So having a player come out who's really only been with us for half a season or so and start having a go at other players, he can do that on the day, he can do that with the players, but I think going public was a bit out of order. So that's why I was a little bit upset with it. In the end, we have to carry on. Jem will go and find a team somewhere else or whatever, and we carry on. It's disappointing, but those things happen, and I'd like to think that we took a lot of time in the summer talking about this, myself and Neil and a few of the management team, and said, look, there was a time where we took a lot more time over finding the background of certain players and how they fit in, and that's what we've done. And Neil knows what I want at the club, and he's on the same wavelength in the way he wants players to operate and be professional. And I'd like to think that, the minute you say this, something will go wrong, but I'd like to think that most of the lads who come in are hungry, they're professional, and they want to be successful. And the way you do that is you perform on the pitch and off the pitch.
Do you think there was, I know obviously you were disappointed by the comments, but do you think there was an element of truth in those comments he made?
Probably, if that's what he thought, that's up to him, isn't it? It was his opinion. Basically, I'm not going to marry up to his opinion. That was his opinion. Yes, you could say that some of the players who were out of contract coming into this season, probably were looking after themselves, but that's not unusual, is it? We've seen that before. It's not unusual in my tenure or anybody else's. That happens with players. If they don't look like they're going to get a contract, why would they go out and get themselves injured or give everything, to be honest? And I think sometimes that happens, but they don't mean to do it. It was just self-preservation, I think. And that was disappointing. But saying that, I think everybody gave everything right up until the Bradford game, which probably was the turning point. I think at the end there, just getting that point was pretty crucial for us.
He sort of seems to suggest there that in terms of recruitment this summer, some of those things have been slightly rectified. We'll come on to the new signings a little bit later on, but I think if we can, could we just turn to the transfer embargo? I know you wrote a little bit in your statement today, but in case people haven't seen that, you suggested in that statement that the club needed to accept the loan to stay afloat. Not many clubs have taken that, so why is it that we were in the position where that loan was a necessity?
You see, the thing is, it's all about cash flow, and we're quite a small club, so we're quite dependent on 3,500 people coming in through the gate on a weekly basis when we're at home. So when you lose that, you lose nearly. Well, you lose that, and then you lose your money for the food. You lose your restaurant, you lose the hospitality, and you lose 2/3 of your business. Now, that's not easy to rectify. That's not easy to just pick out of a pocket. Our businesses, or hospitality, have been shut pretty much since last March. We've only just really been back open. So nearly 18 months, businesses have struggled, and we're absolutely one of those. And it was down to cash flow. It's not having assets or anything like that you can sell. I could sell something cheap, but that wasn't the case. The case was, could we get through the year? We were promised many things from the EFL, including a rescue package. We started the season, lost 1.7 million, and the rescue package turned out to be a loan with things attached to it. So what do? You've been told you're getting money, you've been told you're going to be looked after, and then all of a sudden this is a loan. And the difficulty is you've got to make a choice. Do you get a loan outside of the club, which indebts the club to somebody else, or do you actually take up the EFL offer of the loan, work with their limits and what they want to put on there as an embargo and get through it? And fortunately, we discussed it. Our budget has come down to where we want it to be, which is in line with our turnover, which means that we will break even and still be able to have a reasonable budget to compete. We just have to be a little bit more careful in who we bring in and be a little bit more tougher. We can't just go out there and spend the money that we want to spend. And I'm glad we did that, because we were in League One still spending an extra 3 million a year. I think we'd have been out of business. So, we've had to work hard on it, and I do believe that we've made the right decision. I can't say a lot about it. I am forbidden by the EFL to go through the actual terms of it. But we are not the only one. There are others who have taken this up, and actually, it's a very good deal. And what I have done, and what we've done as a family, is we've covered that by sponsoring the stadium for the same amount over the next 10 years. So it's it's of no detriment whatsoever apart from an embargo, which stops you spending huge amounts of money on players. Well, we're not doing that anyway, so that really doesn't affect us. Doesn't affect who we're going to go and buy. We've got a good squad at the minute, and I believe we can still go out and get the odd one or two and loan players. So I'm relaxed about where we are, and come next season that embargo will be lifted, and maybe sooner if we manage to pay it off sooner, and we manage to get fans back in and a bit of money in the coffers.
Just touching on something there, so the stadium sponsorship has been extended for the next 10 years, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
In terms of the embargo, then you say there, well, initially this whole thing started from the rescue package from the EFL. You say that it then becomes clear that it's actually a loan. At what point in the process did we realise that it wasn't necessarily what you initially thought it was going to be?
Pretty late, to be honest. I can remember going to so many meetings, or actually not going anywhere, Zoom meetings with the EFL over this, and I think the difficulty was there was just nothing in plain sight. The Premier money was coming down, and still League Two we're only getting 8% of the Premier money. So we got half of the money that came down, which is a few $100,000, which got us through. But like I say, we still found ourselves nearly 2 million short, and we didn't really know what that was going to entail until probably the back end of last season. So it didn't really give us a lot of time. We couldn't really do much else. But I think it's a really good decision from us to take the money, and we have to deal with it. It doesn't make an effect on what we're doing, and that's the most important thing. If it did, we probably wouldn't have done it, and we'd have done it a different way. And who knows? Like I say, if we can pay it off, as soon as you pay it off, you can come out of your embargo. But it is a good deal for us. The loan is a very good deal. It's not costing the club anything. So I like to think that we've done what we've needed to do to keep the club afloat, and not to stretch all my businesses, and certainly not the football club to breaking point.
So when will we be able to sign players on our own terms without ratification from the EFL?
Well, we're doing that anyway.
Okay.
We're doing that. There's no ratification from the EFL. You've got a set amount of money that you can spend on players, but it's no different to when we were under the salary cap. Because you've got to remember what happened. We started the season under the EFL standard rules, and then we changed to a salary cap, and then we went back to the rules again. That's 3 changes in financial rules in one season. So it didn't really affect us because we'd already got our budget in place. And actually, the amount they allow us to have under the embargo for each player is probably on a par with what we could spend anyway. We just have to be a little bit careful with the extras, like the accommodation, hotel accommodation, and travel costs and that. But we've married that up and balanced it, and hopefully it won't have an effect. And I think you can see by the signings, they're pretty good signings, and I think the team have done really, really well. Neil and his team have done really well. Keep those prices down and try and get value for money.
Just on that point there, obviously mentioned that we're looking to use the loan market. Is there a cap on sort of what we can pay in terms of percentage of their salary? And if that is the case, has that kind of been an issue trying to kind of get loan players in this summer?
No loan caps. The decision on the loans was to leave them as late as possible. The key was to get the squad together and have all our own players primarily, what Neil wanted, and that's what we've done. And leave the loan market as the last thing that we go into, because a lot of the teams won't let their players out anyway until the start of the season or even the end of August. So you might as well just see how you start with your squad, get your squad together, and if we have to fill in some gaps, then we can do that with loan players. And we're certainly talking to several other clubs at the minute in the Championship who are happy to lend their players out to us at that really good rate. So it's just a different way of operating, and we're comfortable with where we are at the minute.
Just one thing that we had a few comments sent in about it. I think it was on the EFL website, the sort of rules of the embargoes and things like that. And it suggested that teams under the embargo could only sign players on 1-year deals. But obviously, we've been able to do that on 2-year deals. I think maybe just if you could just clarify how that's been possible. Are there kind of different rules for the clubs that have taken the loan as kind of compared to the teams that are actually under a transfer embargo?
No, not really. It's not really about the length of the contract. It's about the value of the contract. We've never been limited to 1 year contracts. We've signed a few on 1 year contracts, but that will be down personally to how we feel the player is going to fit in, and also to give incentives for some of the players as well. No, there's never been an issue on that, and there's not an issue on the loan players either. Honestly, there are no issues there. The amount of players you have is still the same. I think we were allowed 23 senior players last year, and then we could have as many juniors as we wanted, and I believe that we can still do that. We're still clarifying some rules. I think things will change as we go forward, but generally, I think we're working on a 22 or 23 man senior squad, and then our juniors added into that. But we don't want a big squad this year. Neil didn't want a big squad to work with on the training field, and we felt that if we could get this right and bring it down to a 24, 26 man squad, that would work quite nicely for us, and that's where we are at the minute.
And just one more on this one then, just looking forward slightly when we get to January, is that the same in the sense that it won't necessarily affect if we need to do business there? Because obviously last couple of seasons we've brought in reinforcements when needed. I think back to last year, obviously Howard, Karajan, Brown, etc.
Listen, if that's what we need to do in January, we have to do a little bit of juggling, don't we? We just can't just bring them in. People will have to go out, and people who perhaps who are not going to get a contract at the end of the year or not getting a look in may want to go out. It's just about balancing the books, to be honest. Once we've got our full squad in place, it'll be about one in and one out, and that's how we'll try and move it forward. It's a sensible way of doing it, and it's the way that we've decided to move forward.
Let's talk about the outgoings a little bit this summer then. Lewis Spence, was that a desire for Spence to move back to Scotland, or were the club looking to move him on this summer? Because as we saw, he kind of grew into the season a little bit last year, didn't he? And kind of finished quite strongly. So obviously there's a few question marks around, why Lewis Spence left.
Yeah, I like Lewis a lot. I mean, we looked at him as a club two and a half years ago, and I thought he'd be a good addition to us. But getting him in was, I thought, an excellent deal for us. We did a very, very good deal for him. He came in on a 2-year deal. Like you say, he grew into the season. For me, he was that battler. He'd win those tackles. Scored a cracking goal as well, if I remember. He was everything. I thought he was going to build into a great player for us this year, and I didn't want him to go, and neither did anybody else at the football club. He had an offer back in Scotland. He wanted to go back there, and when a player wants to do that, it's very difficult to keep him in the building. And that's all really I can say. All I can say is that we didn't want him to go, and we got a little bit for him, and he's earning a bit more money back up in Scotland where he wanted to be. So there's no good keeping players in the club who don't want to be here or want to be somewhere else. There just is no point in doing that. So we did try, work with him as long as we could, but in the end, the pull of going back to Scotland was just too much for him.
Another player that moved on was obviously John Mackie. Has that fee been agreed, or will that go to tribunal?
No, that'll go to tribunal. I think when Hacks went to tribunal, we didn't get a result from that until the March the following year. So you can imagine the long wind. We weren't asking a lot of money for him, but basically Grimsby feel that he should go for nothing, but I don't feel that's the case. And we as a club have put our case forward, and we'll start to do that and work on that in the coming months. And hopefully we'll get a few quid for him, and he does really well. I want him to do well. I thought he's a very talented lad, and probably just didn't fit into the manager's plans or the way the team played. Very difficult to fit him into a certain position here at Scunthorpe. So that's ongoing. I'm afraid it does happen. Not had too many of those, only 2 or 3 of those since I've been here. So Gracie will work on all the paperwork, and like I say, I don't expect anything to be solved till March, which is a bit outrageous really, but that's how the system is at the minute.
Another player that got a move, Joey Dawson, obviously got the move to Celtic. A couple of questions around this, I suppose. First one, I think quite a few people were asking if he had that amount of talent, why didn't he get a chance in the first team sooner than he did? Obviously, I know injuries played a part towards the end of the season. And then secondly, obviously the fee for Dawson, I guess that's set more or less, given he's an academy player. Can you reveal that fee?
I can't do that, but I mean, it's a standard fee, yeah, that we couldn't really do much. I mean, there was a new deal on the table for Joe for quite a while, to be honest. And yeah, I mean, I wanted to see him in the team the season before. I don't think COVID's helped either. I think there were some issues there. But then when we were trying to get him in at the beginning of the season under Neil, we wanted him to play, and he did get a couple of niggling injuries, a little bit of an ankle injury, bits and pieces. Then he was approached, halfway through the season, and to be honest, there's really not a lot we can do. If he's not going to sign his contract and he's going to go, we can't do anything. We're pretty much stuck, and the real shame. I mean, we got a nice fee for him, but nowhere near what you'd expect from a player that could eventually be at the top level. But it is what it is, and that's the disadvantage of being in League Two, and with the systems in at the minute where they can just take our under 18s. So yeah, disappointed we lost him. I think he's going to be a great player, and I wish him all the luck. And we spoke to Andy a lot about it, and it's a great move for the lad, to be honest. It really is a great move, but I don't like saying that. He looked after the lad. I want to look after the football club, not just the players. I'm disappointed we went, and we didn't get a lot more money for him. But what a great opportunity for him if he can just sort of get himself into that first team.
So the money that does come in from these players that have moved on, is that something that gets reinvested in the transfer budget for this season, or because of the unique situation last year, is it something that's going towards covering the losses because of COVID?
No, nothing's covering the losses on COVID. Like I say, I've covered those with the new sponsorship deal and the FL loan, so that's fine. We get the majority of most of the, well, not the majority, we get a certain percentage of any figure that we get from Football Fortune or player sales. We get that back into the budget, but our budget's up around where we need it to be anyway, so it's going to be very difficult to expand it too much. But again, it's about getting players out and bringing players in that will give us the opportunity to expand our budget. But if money does come in and we're able to put it into the budget, we will do. It's not going to go up to pay any bills or anything like that, unless we don't get the fans coming in and we're struggling to get our turnover up. Then it might have to be used to cover that. But I'm hoping that the fans want to come back in and watch some football, and we can get up to the our levels, which isn't great, but still would make the club a break-even club, and then we could put the extra funding in for the wages.
So should we talk about the players that have come in then a little bit? I think, we spoke about it extensively at the end of last season on the podcast, that obviously we thought it was a really big summer for the club given what had come the season before. And I think, by and large, I think fans have kind of received the signings in a positive way. I think that there's been, some good additions to the squad, some experience that we know we really, really needed. So that's been really good to see. Just from the outside, it kind of appears that there's less of a reliance on agents this summer. So how have the signings worked out so far then? Have they been players that have been identified by the manager, or have there been a few identified by Will, or how's it worked?
Yeah, I think it's continued to work the way it always has done in the identification, is that from your chief scout, your manager, your assistant manager, and then anybody that's passed through to anybody else in the club, actually, including myself. You sometimes get an email or a text saying that a player's free. You pass that on to the manager or the chief scout and say, look, are you interested or are you not? That's always how it's been. Certainly Will has got his teeth into it, which is great, because there's a lot more pressure on him than you'd think, because it's very difficult having that job anyway, but let alone having me as chairman as well. So he's got a tough one there, but I think he's learnt a lot. I think Neil as well trusts him, and yeah, he would have had a lot to do with a lot of these signings, a lot of the negotiations with them, getting them here, getting them on trials. It's a team effort, and in the end, Neil makes that final decision. I'm sure that the chief scout has put a lot more players forward that he hasn't chosen. So it's exactly where it was. Manager makes the final choice, and then everything else is left up to the club to do the paperwork and the deal and work with the agents. And that's how it's always been. But It's just a different level of player that we're looking at. You know, a lot more sort of younger. Some of these on 1 year deals, like some on 2. A lot of future talent there, and we're very, very excited about what we've seen in pre-season. So I'm really hoping that we've turned a corner with it, and you know, that starts tomorrow, which is always nerve-wracking because anything can happen in the first game.
You mentioned earlier on we're obviously still looking at loans. Do you think it will just be loans now, or potentially we could look at some more players on permanent deals?
Yeah, if the right person is there on a permanent deal, we'll do a permanent deal. But primarily, I think we'll look at loans because, you know, we have got quite a healthy squad at the minute, and it would be difficult to commit to players for long contracts at the minute while we're still assessing the ones that we've got. I think loan players are the perfect angle to take, and if we do that and we get the right, and again, you've got to get the right loan players in. If you get the right loan players in, they will add to you as we have in the past. You know, yes, we might never have a Ryan Yates and Ivan Toney again for a while, but you know, I think we've always done reasonably well in the loan market, and the occasional one doesn't work, but that's football. You know, you're never going to get it all right. You just hope it doesn't affect your team too much if you get it wrong.
Would we be looking to kind of fill all the? I know you can obviously have the 5 in the matchday squad. Would we be looking to fill that quota before sort of the transfer window shuts?
If we need to, we've got a fairly big squad, like I say, you know, up in the 20s now. So I mean, the problem is if we bring in loan players in and we're not playing them, it'll cost us. So the sensible thing would be where we need a position, whether that be midfield up top or another winger. That's what we go for. If they're available, we get them. If not, why not save those loans for January, you know, to give us a boost if we need that, along with any other finances that might need to go in. So it's just a balance in the team and the squad. Injuries will play a part in that in the coming few weeks before the season, before the window shuts. And we have to, you know, we want a fallback. So if we get all the loans in now and we get some injuries, then we're going to be in the worst position. So waiting and holding a few of those loans back makes a lot of sense, I think.
Which positions are we looking to strengthen at the moment?
I think Neil's looked at in the midfield, wide and up top. I think, you know, I think he'd ideally like 3 in, maybe 4. He might even want more, knowing the manager. But, you know, that's where we are at the minute. But you don't know if injuries occur. We might need. I think we're pretty strong at the back. I think our cover at the back is pretty good now. I think probably another winger would be good, and probably a forward with a little bit different to the lads we've got. I mean, although Hallam is fit and raring to go and is looking great, I think he's like a new signing for us. And Cam Wilson has done really well. You know, there are opportunities there, and we want these lads to have those opportunities. So I don't necessarily want Neil to go out and just get a lone player for the sake of getting him because he's a winger and he's an extra bod. If we've got the lads here and the youth players are coming through and look quite hungry and quite strong, we like to bring them through first. And I think that's really our first visiting point when we look at the squad.
Well, it's not just the squad that's had additions. Obviously, it's the backroom staff as well. And I think something that came as a surprise to fans was the addition of Tony McMahon. Obviously, when we're talking about loans, one under your time was, I think, extremely successful. Actually, I'd say one of the players of the season that year he was here. What was the thinking behind bringing him in, and who made that decision?
Well, I think Neil hadn't really had the chance to sort of change his backroom staff around a little bit, and I think it was really important that when we made the decision that the under 23s just need to be shelved for a couple of years, that he wanted somebody, because we're bringing some young lads in, he wanted somebody a little bit different eventually. But I mean, we'd not even planned for Tony, to be honest. No, sadly, we had to let Russ go because of the 23 setup. And we'd really not thought about bringing anybody in, but Tony became available. And the way that we're going, Neil said that he'd like him in the club. So, of course, I got no problem with that at all because I've got a good relationship with Tony. And it was, you know, he did have a great spell here with us. And, you know, he is a consummate professional. And, you know, there's nothing wrong in having ex-players in their early years in your club. There's nothing wrong with that. And they can connect probably with some of the younger players and the older players going out. So, no, delighted to have him on board. And, yeah, you know, these things happen. You know, managers change, teams, squads, backroom staff all the while, even when they come in straight away. So it wasn't really a surprise that eventually he wanted somebody else in to do a certain job for him.
Of course, Tony McMahon is not the only member of the backroom staff who's come in this summer. We've also brought in Dale Tong, who's got really good experience as an assistant manager at Barnsley, and of course, on the side that won promotion to the Championship. So he comes with really good pedigree. So how pleased are you to get that one done?
I think everybody that's coming in, you hate to say it because it's like optimism, and I know the fans don't like the chairman having optimism a lot of the time, but I actually do think we've done really well, and everybody that's come in, we're really excited with, wherever they are in the business and in the club. So yeah, it's great to have these people in, and it's a breath of fresh air, and that's exactly why Neil was brought into the football club to give us a bit of a change of direction and a change of attitude, I think, as well.
You talk about a little bit of optimism there, given the signings. Well, let's look at this season coming up, obviously starting tomorrow. Last season's success was survival. Is it the same again for this year, or are we thinking we can aim a little bit higher now?
I think we should aim a little bit higher. I know that the polls have been out there and they're killing us and said we were lucky if we make 23rd or 22nd or whatever. That's not what we're thinking. The lads don't think that at all. I think these lads are a decent side. I would love this side to be thinking about consolidation, but consolidation in the middle of the table. And just see where we are. As always, it'd be really nice to be sitting there and decide what we want to do in January. Do we bring young players in because we think we can manage that to the end of the season, or do we have to bring a bit of experience in to help us get to the end? I haven't got a crystal ball here. We've changed everything. Fans back in. Don't know how that's going to change it. It's going to be tough, I think, for the players to remember what it's like. Although they did enjoy their trip to Wimbledon and 4,500 Wimbledon fans shouting at them. So, listen, I really would like us to finish in the middle of the division and just continue a progress towards getting back on our feet again after the pandemic.
Assuming we do that, what are the plans for have you got plans for the next couple of seasons? And would the budget change if, for example, we consolidate this season? Would you kind of be tempted to maybe throw a little bit more at it next season and maybe have a push for sort of promotion?
I really think that we need to concentrate on stability and sustainability of the club. We've had that go. I put a lot into the club, and our success was nearly there. 4 points off the potential of going straight up out of League One to the Champ. And the budget there was about 3 million, so we were competing against 10, 11, 12 million pound budgets around us. And I thought we did really well. And the squad we had at that time, if we'd have gone up to the Champ, I think we'd have done really well. Because most of those players who had to leave because they went to better clubs, you could have seen us doing really well. So disappointed I didn't manage to get to the Champ, but I tried my best. You're never going to win everything. We had a bit of stability for 5 years in League One. Now we're in League Two. Both years have been affected by COVID. Points per game first time around when we went down, and then a whole season without fans. So getting back on the tracks a little bit now, making sure we don't overstretch ourselves at this moment, and just get us into a position where we're comfortable. Who knows? If we have a little bit of luck, we'll sell a player, or we can put a little bit of money in the following season, yeah, maybe. But I think our focus at the minute is just get through this season, see where we are, and then decide what to do. Coming into the following summer.
Just one more on that one before we move on. You mentioned all those polls and things like that, and bookies and things having us finishing 23rd, 24th, that sort of stuff. You say that the lads in the dressing room are sort of thinking they can do better than that. Are they the sort of squad, and Neil, is he the type of manager that's actually using all of that and using it to spur them on, or is it something that's just sort of completely avoided in there?
All those polls, all those people who are now knocking us and knocking the players, they're on the wall in the changing rooms. In that home dressing room are the tweets, are the posts of everybody who's absolutely knocking us and shoving us. And the lads have put them up on the wall. They're looking at them and they're reading them every day. And Neil's driving that into them and say, look, this is what people think we are. So No, they'll be driven, I can assure you. And it's been exciting to watch them in training, and even watching the pre-season games. It's been a pretty good pre-season. Touch wood. We've shown some real spark and grit at times. And the losses against Hull and Lincoln are not to be sniffed at. Lincoln are a very strong side this year. I'd be surprised if they're not in the top part of that division. Although League One is probably the strongest it's ever been, certainly since in the last 10 years. So. I think it will drive these lads on. I'm looking at them physically. We've had probably the best pre-season we've had because we've just been able to manage everything correctly. I think Neil's delighted with the fitness of the lads and their attitude. So, no, I think the more bad comments out there, the more it'll drive them on. And that doesn't mean I want everybody to send bad comments in, of course, but I would like to think that these guys are going to use that to propel themselves forward into better performances. I
was going to ask if any of mine were on there, but we'll move on.
I've definitely made sure there's a few of yours on there. And I've highlighted them as well, red highlighted.
Let's move on to just have a quick chat about the stadium, because, again, we've had quite a few comments sent in about this one. So obviously there's still questions about the ownership of the stadium and things like that have been raised. Probably just go through a few, actually. Fred's been in touch. He said that when you came into the club, you promised that when you left the club, you'd leave it in no worse financial situation than when you'd taken over. He would like to know how you'd intend to do that, given that the ownership of all the land and the ground is now Cool Silk and not Scunthorpe United. And we've also had a similar question sent in by Neil Wright on that topic as well.
No, good old Neil. I think I've told him so many times, Neil. Never mind. I hope he's listening tonight. I hope you're listening, Neil.
He is.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. Listen, when you've been through a pandemic like we were, and when we were going through difficult times, the most important thing is that you look at the revenues that you could probably get into the club. Our revenues, we haven't really got a very big crowd. Our revenues are probably £3.5 million a year, which means that you're looking at probably £1 million budget. That's what it is at the minute. That's all you can look at. And it's difficult to raise any of those funds. When I came into the club, when I did say that, I didn't realise how much I would have to spend to get the club to stability. We were short on budget by at least £1 million. I had to pay £2 million or over £2 million of the previous chairman's loan, which he secured against the stadium, and another £1 million really basically to tidy everything up. So when I came in, instead of being able to put all that money into the club, I had to put 4.5 million. The club wasn't worth much more than that anyway on paper, even with all the land around it, because there was no training field, there was no planning permissions, it was 2 car parks. So what I've done is managed to separate the two off so that I can go on and develop that land, and we can then go and build a training. My aims have always wanted to build a training centre, and we abide where we need to do that. COVID has meant that 18 months, you're not going to spend that some sort of money during that period of time. But now, as we're starting to come out, and listen, we need to look and see how fans affect our income up until Christmas, and then we can have a real good go. Our planning for the apartments is until next year, so we've got time to start that, and we should be starting that reasonably soon in the next few months. We have some full planning to do on that, and then there are other bits that we'd like to do on the site to make it more viable for us. The apartments will bring people in, and people will spend money in restaurants and bars, and hopefully at the football club. So there's a knock-on effect there, and you can see opposite Adil now. I think they've started the groundworks on the new hotel and gym that's going to be built opposite us, and they've already finished the drive-through. So it is a retail part which is growing, and we have to utilise that to our best. And having it attached to a football club, you're just not going to get the investment. So having it sort of separated out means that we can go and get the financing and get the investment for all those projects outside of the football club without anybody going, well, you're a football club, I don't want to lend you money. So it's a business decision. We've always owned the football club. I've always owned the football club from day one. Cool Silk has owned it because I own 91% of the company. It's been a subsidiary of Cool Silk for all those years. Nothing's really changed. And when I go, as I said, the club will be in a better position. If I go, and I know people probably don't want to hear if they want to hear when. But it will be in a better position when I leave than it was when I took over, and I'll make sure that will happen.
I've had another question sent in. Phil asked whether an independent valuation was done on the land, or whether it was just basically the 11 million debt, and obviously the land and the ground in exchange for that.
There was a valuation done, yes, in 2018, actually before COVID. So it was actually a fair valuation, and it was nowhere near the 11.5 million, I can assure you. I think it was probably valued at around about 5 million for the whole lot, 5.2 million. So we've written everything off, and I still intend to deliver what I said is by improving the facilities and trying to get our training facilities built, and whatever else we need to bring up our revenue so that we can actually be competitive. You can imagine if we dropped into the conference, we'd have no chance, absolutely no chance. You've got 12 clubs there with the budgets in excess of 1.25 million. You got less structure on salaries and wages, and it's a fight for all, and we just wouldn't survive with our small crowd. So I think having stayed in the league, we now give ourselves a chance to continue to stay in this league and build ourselves up, because it's going to be tough. There are clubs in the national conference who've got probably £3 million budgets in the conference. You know, how can we ever how can half the League Two compete with that? They can't. So we're always looking over our shoulders, but all I'm trying to do is just give us the best chance of continuing as a football league club.
So, I mean, if you ever walked away from the club and sold the club, would any possible suitors be able to buy back the club's assets for around £11 million?
Absolutely. Be less than that, Matt. Be less than that. I've come in, and we as a family have spent a lot of money in the football club, and you know, we've written all that off. I own 8 million in shares as well. So as you can imagine, it's been a big investment for us, and we've done our best. You know, I'm not, you know, this was my first league club as a chairman. I've learned a huge amount. It's been tough. There's been a lot of difficulties within that, but I'm still here and I'm still fighting, and I'll still make those big decisions, like I said right at the beginning, that I have to make. And some are right, some are wrong. You know, I'm never gonna please everybody, and I'm certainly never gonna please the dozen or so people that continue to knock me. But I'm still here, I'm still doing it. And as I said before, you know, if I walk out, there isn't somebody there who's going to plough 3 million a year in wages into Scunthorpe United Football Club. I can tell you, it isn't there, because if it was, and that was better than me, I would have sold the club and given it to somebody else who wanted to put that sort of money in. But they aren't there, I can assure you. So going forward, I'm here. I'm going to do my best. I'm still fighting my corner, and we'll continue to try and get it right.
You said just there that obviously your ambition is the continued development and new facilities and things like that, the training facilities. I think you said that in your statement as well today. So what exactly is going on with that in terms of development, and is there some sort of time frame that we can expect to sort of actually see something like this?
Okay, so now we've come out. Well, say we've come out of COVID. We all hope we have. We know that anything can happen, but if we have a good 3 or 4 months now, we can get through to Christmas. We'll start to get the development on the apartments moving, because that needs to be done certainly before summer next year. We will look at the development of the East Stand for not just the NHS, for some other bits and pieces, a new gym, bits and pieces. And we have identified a plot of land where we want to put 4 football pitches on and site the academy, first team, and the future, hopefully in a couple of years when the under-23s come back, put them in all one place. So, you know, that's further investment of millions into that, and that's what we're going to do. There's a few other bits that we'd like to do. We're still trying to improve the training facilities. They've cost us a lot over the years, but we've still got a little bit of work to do in the stadium as it is at the minute. But we're going to continue to do that as best we can. But we have to be careful how we do it. We don't want to overspend at this time as we build ourselves back up as a business.
Just moving on then a little bit. Peter, can you reveal how many season tickets have been sold this season?
Ooh, you caught me out there because I've been busy. I mean, I think we've got up to about 1,100. I think something like that, 1,200. I think I'll probably be told differently in a minute. Maybe my wife will come running in and show me on a big placard how many it is. I don't know, but certainly we're a little bit short of where we need to be. But I'm hoping that the performances in the first part of the year might just entice a few back. I mean, it's difficult, you know, that COVID has affected everybody's pocket, everybody's wage. You know, people have lost their jobs, lost family. I mean, it's so difficult to then ask them to come and pay, 20 quid to watch a football match. But I'm hoping that instead of spending all that money on Netflix and all the movies now that they used to do, they might want to come out and watch some football. I honestly do think that if they want to support the club, as I've said since day one, just come and keep that figure. If you keep that figure of 3,000 or 3,500 fans coming through the gate, we can support the club further as well. So really important that they come along. I think, we are around about 1,100. So we're still, we're still a little bit short of we're a long way short of where we want to be. I think we need to be around about 1,800 to 2,000. But I do understand the financial implications of that. But hopefully they'll start to come in as we get some performances on the board.
One of the changes at the stadium now is obviously that it is a cashless stadium. I believe if I remember back to fans forums over the years, I think it was mentioned certainly when Rodwell was here that might have been something they were looking at doing anyway. Is the decision to go completely cashless just to do with COVID, or was it something that's, is there other reasons behind it?
I think it's very practical. I think during COVID, everybody seems to have used their credit cards more anyway. And no, I think cash costs us money. It's difficult. You lose money, believe it or not. No, they're going as a cashless stadium. A lot of stadiums are doing that now. The bigger ones have done, and I think it's the best way to go. And we are. I say tomorrow you can't pay cash on the tills on the turnstiles tomorrow. So you need to go and get your ticket before you come in, and preferably if you can use your credit card, even better. So just to warn people, they just can't walk up and pay cash on the turnstiles tomorrow. Actually, I've been told now we're near 1,200, so maybe I sold 100 whilst I've been on. Don't know. I'm hoping they're more than anything, but 1,200. So another 600 would be great, and hopefully, like I say, Neil can get him performing well, and we can get a feel good sort of feeling around the club again, and hopefully people will be wanting to come and see these exciting players.
We're just going to carry that on actually, because we are starting to wrap up as we're approaching 8 o'clock. We're saying we'll hopefully try and sell a few more season tickets, get some fans back in. I think inevitably performances would do that, but is there a bit of a bigger picture, a bigger plan in terms of everything that's gone on in the last couple of years? Has how the club planned to actually, win back certain disgruntled fans? I think there are quite a number of them given the sort of last season and the season before.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's not, when you get relegated, there's always a knock-on effect. And like I say, being relegated, then hit by COVID 2 seasons where you don't finish your seasons properly, really, or even start your season with no fans. You've got to fight your way back. So I think what it is now is just get ourselves on a good footing. And we are. Listen, the club are not in debt. We're okay. We're starting to build up other aspects. So we're talking to fans groups at the minute, and I think we're developing a fans panel as well. We're trying to get back into the community a little bit, and again, being 18 months in lockdown and all the difficulties that has been hard. But you'll see Neil and his team doing a huge amount more community work. Although we are pretty good at that, I like to think. The KVVs and the ESAs and all that used to do a great job, but I think we'll be in the community a little bit more, and hopefully with the fans panel and even trying to get a fan on the board, which we've been talking about. It isn't easy, but we're hoping to develop that and get somebody on. There are a lot of difficulties in having somebody on the board, either at director level or non-exec, who then has the responsibility of making decisions. So we put that to the supporters group maybe 4 months ago, I think it was, and they're still debating that. So you can see how difficult it is to come back with an answer. But changes are changes. I came in to do what I did, which was get the club up and then have a go. That had to be really done by myself because I was putting the money in, so I backed myself to do that. Didn't happen. We've come down, and now we've got to sort ourselves out, keep ourselves strong, hopefully get entertainment and start to bring back a lot of the younger supporters as well. We want to do that. A lot of people have missed out on 18 months of going out. These kids, somebody who's 16 is probably nearly 18 now, and they've hardly been out. So I think hopefully we can get a lot more younger players back, and the likes of our young players, Cam and O'Malley and Jay and a few of the others in the side now. They can see these 19-year-olds and 18-year-olds playing. Hopefully that'll interest them to come and watch them. And I think we're going to surprise a few people this year with that.
We have actually had a few questions on the fans panel. For those that haven't heard, can you just explain briefly what the thinking is behind it, but also when and how do the candidates actually get selected as to those who are going to make that panel up?
I think that's been down to my CEO more than me on the fans panel. I've been working on more getting a fan on the board rather than the fans panel. So I'm afraid I'm not completely au fait with the fans panel, but there is a selection process to go through. I honestly don't know what that is. I'm not sure whether Matt should apply for it, but we'll see. You never know, they might change their mind. It might be a laugh. You never know that one. But no, I honestly I don't know how that's going to work completely, but we accept that and we want that to happen. We've always been quite transparent. We have, and I think I've been one of the most vocal chairmen. I've always said what I've wanted to say. I've been honest, and to be honest, a lot of the fans don't want to hear that sometimes. They'd rather not hear it. So I'll still, when you ask me questions, I'll be honest about it. But hopefully, we'll leave the team to fight it out and obviously make their own history here now without me battering on every week about certain things or fighting arguments with other people. I can't be bothered. I'm doing a job here as best I can. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'm not going to let it knock me down. I looking at a few pictures earlier, I looked a lot younger. I think I looked 20 years younger when I started with running. So I do feel a lot older, and I do feel like I've been here a lot longer than 8 years. But there you go. A lot of people thought I wouldn't last 6 months. So 8 years. I don't know whether that's a sentence or whether that's something I can look back on. But no, I made some great friends, and I built up the relationships, bringing both of them back in, and sadly, even though we lost Ray Clements was a fantastic fan of the football club. Kevin Keegan was back. We've tried to build a club up and to continue it, and I just haven't had the success that the previous chairman had, and that happens. It's very difficult for a club of our size to compete these days. The wages in the championship are just extraordinary now. I think if we'd have gone up that year, we'd have had a £16 million budget in the championship the next year, and would have fancied our chances of getting in the playoffs. Now 16 won't even get you enough points to finish bottom of the table, I don't think. So, and even in League One, if you look at the Sunderlands and the Ipswiches and all those bigger teams in League One, their budgets are probably up in the 8s and 9s and 10s. So we're going to find it very difficult to compete going forward, but that's how the game has progressed. And what we must do now is just sort of lay out a plan where we protect our league existence, challenge between League 2 and League 1, and just remain as a quality community football club. And that's what I intend to do.
Just a couple of finish. Obviously, back at the stadium tomorrow. We've had a few questions sent in about the state of the stadium, in particular dirty seats and things like that. Rob asked whether the stadium's been cleaned ahead of tomorrow, and we've had a couple of questions about the drains as well, and whether there's any. The club have obviously paid anyone to have a look at those, because I think someone got their feet wet this afternoon buying tickets.
Did they? Oh my word! Listen, we've had some horrendous weather actually in the last few days. I think the problem is there's not a lot you can do there, is there? I mean, I am hoping it's been cleaned. I mean, it's not something I've had a wander around and had a look at, to be honest. But I mean, I presume it will be cleaned and wiped down. But the weather has been horrendous. We have had a little bit of a problem with the amount of water lying there. But we always have in the car park, as you know. I mean, even though I get out of my car, I probably need a pair of flippers to get in through the door. But it is bad out there. But I think that's just a general thing of how the drains have been put in under the stadium. If you look at the difference in levels between going out the door and up into the car park and then down into the training pitch, there's a lot of work to be done, but you're talking hundreds of thousands of pounds. At the minute, I think we're fighting fires with a few bits and pieces, bits of guttering and that, but we're trying our best. And I'm sure it'll be as clean as we can get it. But we've got 8,500 seats, so if they think their seat's dirty, they can always move next door onto a clean seat or something. I don't know. Or take a duster with them. That'll help me. But I better not make that actual thing of coming in with you picking the duster. They all will, won't they? I'll be in trouble. But no, we've had a few problems with the weather. We're getting on top of it. The pitches took a bit of a battering, and the training pitch as well, with the drainage. But let's hope we can have it all right for tomorrow. And hopefully everybody enjoy their experience.
Back onto the pitch then, Peter, instead of underneath it, what in terms of your kind of view on the season, where are you expecting us to finish, and also who do you think will be our top scorer this season?
Oh wow, top goal scorer. I think I'd like to see Lofty up there. I think he showed enough qualities to be a 20 goal a season striker in this division. Almost certainly, I'd like to see a lot more from our peripheral players as well, our midfielders and wingers, which will be good. Unfortunately, not every forward will score goals. I think that brings me on to actually KDT a little bit. There was one. No one's asked me about KDT. We seem to be out a lot of press talking about Keenan and the fact that who he was signed by and why he's not got in the team. I feel real sorry for the guy actually, because if you remember, he played really well at Watford and Crawley. Did exceptionally well at those two games, and we put a deal on the table, Neil and myself, and was just about to sign him when Lofty came in as well. And then Neil wanted Lofty as well, so we ended up signing two of the players. But the signing was definitely Neil's and the football club. So we're talking about other people signing him and all the issues signing. There were other players that we signed that didn't quite work out, but their circumstances which are gone now. And I'm hoping that the strikers we have got in the side and the wingers will start. I hope Dev will get a few goals. Bunny looks like he'll get a few goals. Hallam, if he's back in, he will score. And I like the fact that Neil has been able to work with Will to bring in some exciting players this season. I mean, Will have nothing to do with previous seasons, and this is his first season. And I'd like my chief scout to be sort of marked on this season with Neil. That would be really good. Young lad coming through, regardless of whether he's my lad or not. That would be good. He'd probably tell you who will score all the goals. He's got more facts than me. Who do you think's going to score? Who's going to be the top goal scorer then?
I mean, in my personal opinion, I think it's probably going to be Loft for us. Be nice to see Harry Bunn get a few as well. Yeah, it would. I think he will score 6 or 7 goals. I think Dev will do the same. So you can see where the goals are going to come from. It could be quite exciting, and I also think that Beastie's got a lot to offer as well. He looks a great player. He did last year, and him and Kenyon in the middle there look a good partnership. So it'll be quite exciting tomorrow. We all look to enjoy it. It's our first game back, community club, our local club. And I just wish that everybody gets there safely and enjoys the day.
I was going to ask for some sort of message to end, but I think that probably does it quite nicely, actually. Peter, thank you very much for joining us once again. All the best with the season. Yeah, and you guys, you can always invite me on any time, and hopefully not all the time when we're losing loads of games, because it's a bit more difficult. Then try and choose the time we won a few. That'd be nice. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Thank you.